Sorry, I know of at least one more member of the committee that's coming, but we have a couple things we can do first. So welcome to Higher Ed Budget Committee. I'll call the meeting to order. And the first thing that we need to do is approve our minutes from last week. Representative Wassinger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion to accept the minutes from March 8th and 9th as written.
Seconded by Representative Woodard. Is there any discussion? Anyone have any changes or additions, corrections that need to be made to the minutes? Okay, all in favor of correcting, or I don't think you need to close on that. All those in favor of accepting the minutes from last week, say aye. Opposed? Okay, so the minutes are accepted. And then we'll just go ahead and start. We are so excited to have Autumn Bertel with us today. Kansas Miss Amazing organization. So just introduce yourself. Let us know what is on your mind. We've got your outline right here. And then if it's okay with you, at the end, we may just ask you a few questions. Okay, so your microphone is on, I think, and we'll see if we can hear you. Otherwise, we may tip the microphone down a little bit but go ahead. Welcome to committee.
So a second-year student. About a few inaccessibility issues that I also talked to a student that has attended both as far as accessibility goes. So the first issue that we've had is with transportation. We do have regular buses that allow for wheelchairs to be on them, but the main issue that I've noticed with that and others is that a lot of the drivers aren't really up to date on like how to put hooks on wheelchairs properly, because there's a specific way for safety reasons, and they're just not used to it and educated on how to do that. Also, students that may have like prosthetics are slower to getting in and out of the doors are having troubles with that as well. KU specifically, they do have specialized busing known as J-Lift. Any student that has a disability is able to use it, and they are more trained in getting wheelchairs into them. But the main issue with that is you have to schedule 24 hours ahead of time, and there's a 30-minute delay period, so you could end up being 30 minutes late to your class, which can be a huge issue. Another transportation issue is parking on campus, which myself, I park and drive to my classes on campus. There's very limited parking on campus. I've had to miss classes due to people either illegally parking or the 2 parking spots that is available there are already taken up by people who need them as well. Another transportation issue, which a student was blind who let me know, is the crosswalks on campus are not accessible. So one of our busiest streets on campus is Jayhawk Boulevard. For him, it's a real safety issue because he can't tell if cars are going by. It could easily be hit by a vehicle. As far as building accessibility, another thing is navigation signs getting to class. For KU, we have it's called like Hawk Route. And it's supposed to be the most accessible ways to getting through buildings since a lot of the structures are older. One thing that an able-bodied student actually reminded me of is how much longer it is to get to classes compared to the average student when going through this route. And often there are more easier ways of getting to classes than following that route. It's also not readily available. You have to look on the website yourself. You're not told about it. I just found out about it this year, and I'm a second-year student. Another thing that goes along with the parking is the location of parking. There's many buildings where there is stairs as soon as where the handicap parking is, which obviously for me as a wheelchair user, that's not very useful. And I have to go around the whole building to get into it, an accessible entrance. And with those entrances, a lot of the times there's poor upkeep. One notably is the ramp that is on Snow Hall. I could easily flip my wheelchair with the way that the upkeep is on the ramps. If my casters were to get stuck while I was going downhill, I could easily flip my wheelchair. Besides just getting to class, there's also accommodations in class that have been issues at KU. For class materials, the process to acquire materials is you have to submit an application at the beginning of each semester on accommodations that you can need, whether it be like learning materials or simple as a desk. Now, this is a relatively easy process, but it takes about 2 weeks for us to get these materials. For me, I usually don't have a desk within the first week of classes. For other students that need accessible materials, it makes them 2 weeks behind in class. And in college, it's definitely not easy to catch up. Another thing is there's a lack of options. So a few of the students that I have talked to, whether they're blind, have ADHD, or dyslexic, they're not allowed audiobooks for most of the classes, which seems like something that should be very easily available. That's not an option. And this would make learning for classes a lot more easy. Another thing is online accessibility, which you think wouldn't be an issue given that we just went through a pandemic that's been on Zoom. But actually, it's been a real big issue since the lessening of restrictions for students. Myself, I've had issues with that while being out for medical procedures. Another student who's in the PhD department, she's getting her PhD, and she's told me that legal counsel could question her qualifications for getting a PhD for requesting online accommodations. She also had to hire an attorney for these accommodations to be met, and then KU finally met them after that. Another thing that is why these are issues is how departments and professors address these needs. So departments and everyone on campus has to do diversity training at the beginning of each semester. So the diversity training, while it tells you a little bit of basics about disabilities, you can do it within 30 minutes without reading anything. It's very lax in depth. Even like people that are on the diversity, equity, and inclusion committee couldn't even tell me what crisscross marks were for parking places, which is something that would be considered very basic, but it's very lacking in depth. Also, their handling of individual accommodations. So this has been a big issue for myself because with being in a school of engineering, you have to go to classes through different departments, such as the math department, chemistry department, whatever it may be. And some departments will approve your accommodations while others will deny them, such as online access to classes. They're also being pushed to not allow certain accommodations, such as the online learning. I had all my School of Engineering professors told me that they would allow me accommodations, but the math department denied me them. And with the professors, one thing that has been a real big issue is communications with them and the Student Access Center. And that is kind of why there has been that 2-week delay, is the professors are not communicating well with the Access Center, who we are told to go to individually, and told that we shouldn't have to talk to each professor, but we've been needing to every single time. Another thing that has been issues for some students on campus has been privacy and respect and understanding of the disability. There's been a couple different students that the professor addressed them in derogatory manner and discussed their disability in front of students. Also having accommodations for one individual specifically. She has a major anxiety disorder, and that professor was told not to pick on her during class by the Student Access Center. They did so anyway. It caused her to have a panic attack in class, and students treated her differently afterwards. She also had accommodations to do presentations in private with the professor to help reduce that, and they also disregarded that accommodation as well. Another thing that we noticed about KU specifically as well is the organizations and clubs and how well they are with accepting disabled individuals as well, such as there is no organization currently for disabled students. I myself have had to go out of my way to create an organization. There was in the past, but it has since not been existing. Also, with the accessibility to being in sororities and fraternities, one issue is with the TPE program, which is for intellectually disabled students mainly. For them to do like a 2-year program to get a job, they can't be a full-time status to do that, and you have to be full-time status to be a sorority or fraternities. So that is discriminating against them. Along with athletics, you have to be a full-time student and maintain a certain GPA, and you can't do that if you're in one of these programs at KU. That also with the part-time status is tuition issues. So accessibility for scholarships and grants, the majority of them, you are required to be a full-time student, which is not possible for some disabilities to maintain that full-time status with their medical issues. And the qualifications, that almost all of them say you have to be full-time. And you're not really given any options on grants or scholarships. If you're a part-time student, there's no list or anything. There's no availability for it. You have to go out of your way trying to search it, and what's available is very limited. Another issue that I personally experienced this semester was I had to do a medical withdrawal because of my classes. I was taking 15 credit hours, and 2 professors told me that if I couldn't participate in person, I couldn't participate in the class. And I needed to be a full-time student to still get my my Pell Grant and my scholarships to be able to attend classes. Well, with those 2 classes, I was down to 9 credit hours, and I wasn't able to do that. So I had to medically withdraw from all my classes for this semester, which is delaying me a semester in college, which is it can be a big issue. Luckily for me, I'm able to fit around my schedule, but for other students, this would delay them in graduating for another semester. Simple solutions to this is just providing more on campus. For a campus as large as KU and claims to be inclusive towards disabled students, they really aren't. They're not allowing accommodations such as like audiobooks or online learning, which they allowed for everyone during the pandemic. But when someone needs it for an accommodation, they're not allowing it. And the departments are not, they're being pushed not to by the university. But just allowing that access, making sidewalks accessible so it's not a safety issue, maintaining what they're supposed to for ADA standards, and keeping them in check for regulations.
Thank you so much. So informative. Really appreciate all of that. So I think there's probably a few questions from the committee, if that's okay with you. Okay, Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, April. Awesome. I mean, you are very organized. Thank you for doing all of this. Sounds like there's some things that this committee can discuss with the different colleges as far as maintenance on their buildings, maintenance on their sidewalks, a lot of things like that that you brought to our attention. We really appreciate it. My background is in high school, and in high school, teachers, when there would be students that had needs for accommodations and modifications, we would get a list of those kind of things that would be with when we could pull up the students' enrollment for that day, or the kids that were in our classes. We would know what the accommodations and modifications were going to be for that. And it sounds like the professors are not getting that information. I mean, it's one thing that they're not getting, if they're not getting that information so that they know how to do a good job teaching for students. But it's another thing that, if they know that they have a problem getting out those accommodations, and being aware of that they are not being sensitive to what's going on. And that would be a whole new challenge. Hopefully those professors, that is not a problem. I would hope that maybe it's just a communication problem that they need to have on those student records when they pull up their class load, that they would know what accommodations or modifications that they would need for those students. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Woodard.
Madam Chair, and thank you, Autumn, for being here. It was just 9 years ago this month that I actually was testifying for the first time in this building. Then as student body vice president, did far better than I ever did. So, and now I'm on this side of the table, so I can't wait until you are as well. During my term as student body VP at KU, one of the things that we tried to bring to the attention of the administration was, at that time, it was the AAAC, now the Academic Access Center, was located in the basement of Strong Hall. Yet if you were in a wheelchair, the only way you could access your administration building was to go through the back door. So we pushed very hard to ensure that, clearly a lot of work left to go to make the campus accessible, but we wanted it to be very important that the administration building be accessible and that students that have to use a wheelchair could enter through the front of the building and not the back. But even just having the conversation with that chancellor at the time and actually walking her outside to show her the route that people had to go to access their services to be able to be successful academically was really important. So thank you for your advocacy. My only question is, how have your conversations gone with the campus administration, the student senate who has funding that could be dedicated to some of these things? I was a student at KU for 4.5 years. I had to do half a victory lap because I also had to do a medical withdrawal one semester. But then I was a student for 4.5 years and didn't know that, because I'm able-bodied, didn't even fathom the fact that folks that can't see are crossing, especially Jayhawk Boulevard. I've seen those people drive. They're crazy. And so it's really risky. So what have your conversations been like, if you had them so far, with the campus administration?
So as far as administration, so far I've talked to different professors that are on like the heads of different departments. I've talked to the SAC, and they're just like, well, we can relay this information and stuff, but they're just like, well, it would be better if you had like testimonies of a group of people.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being here. Thanks for your advocacy and your really important work. It's great to have you here today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So Autumn, I just have a couple questions. One of them is, I'm particularly interested in what you said about going part-time, less accessibility to scholarships. And, we do appropriate quite a bit of state money for scholarships and things. Would that be federal money, state money? I mean, do you have any idea of, what kind of scholarships are available for part-time students? Are there any, or, there might be something we could do about this, but I didn't know about it before. So if you have any information, that would be great.
Okay, as far as I know, because I would have been part-time this semester, but I had to do the medical withdrawal. As far as like looking online, and as far as my grants that I applied for, I had to be a full-time. I'm not sure if it's state or federal or not. But when I was looking at different scholarships, almost all of them, the qualification is full-time student.
Okay, that's interesting. It's good to know. And then another question I had, could you tell us a little bit more about the Miss Amazing organization? I wasn't aware of it, and how do you fit in, and just a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so actually my friend Nora that I met at KU, she told me about Miss Amazing, and she's like, oh, it's like a pageant for people with disabilities, and she got me in contact with the director, Michelle, and I literally found out about it a month before the state event. She's like, yeah, it's a great opportunity for you to like advocate for people with different disabilities. And it's something that I've always been interested in, because I was like, oh, I want to do Miss Wheelchair Kansas. So it's basically a pageantry that it's a different type of pageantry where you're able to communicate your voice as a disabled individual and bring attention to anything that you want, and to show what you're passionate about. And like, it's like looking through a different lens.
And so once a year event kind of, and then, okay. And when is your reign over, or when did you start?
So the competition was in November, and then nationals will be this summer. It's like the end of July, beginning of August. And then it'll depend, like if you win nationals, you'll have the national title until the next summer. But then it's if you're just the state holder, it starts over in the fall.
Okay, well, wow, congratulations to you for that honor. Where is the national pageant?
It's in Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, wonderful. Have a great time. Representative Wassinger has another question.
I also met some national winners. Raise your hands and tell us, maybe you could tell us a little bit about. Well, clearly it didn't work for you. So it's just a waste of time. It just sounds so amazing. I think, well, clearly it's amazing. Yeah, so thank you for that.
Do you mind sharing your name again, just so we make sure people watching online could hear your name? Okay, thank you. Was there anyone else that would like to say something in the audience? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tell us your name first.
Yeah, that makes sense. And awareness, I think, is a big part of it. So that's why we're really happy that you all are here and that we can become more aware. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Representative Riley, you have a question or comment, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And it is a comment that I've seen this at some other schools, and just a suggestion. I know that the colleges do listen to us, and the tech schools and the community colleges, they do listen to us. So this is not necessarily just a KU situation, but I might make a suggestion as a voluntary kind of thing that you might talk to your administration about doing, and that would be have a disability day. And it wouldn't have to be every year, but just let the administration for one day have a wheelchair, put on blinders, see what it's like to get around being blind, all the different kinds of disabilities, and let them try it out for a day and see if they get some light on this situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, any other questions from committee members? Okay, we really appreciate you, Autumn, giving us this great information. We appreciate you making the trip to Topeka and being here with us. And for everybody in the audience, we're really glad that you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, committee, this is our last committee meeting. You have your folders. If you had them, they're on your desk. If you don't take them today, we will dispose of them. And also the budget books are over there. If you don't take yours, if you want it, please take it, because if you don't, it won't be here when you come back. So, okay, committee, any questions, anything for the good of the committee? Okay, thank you again, everyone, for being here, and we're adjourned.